Welcome in, everyone, to our Cracked Racquets Week 1 recap of the 2020 U.S. Open. Of course, that's a phrase we weren't sure we were going to get to say, and so I know I speak for all of us when I say it has been such a pleasure to see our favorite players back on court competing against one another. Of course, today on this video, we're going to be talking about the women's draw, and coming into this event, we knew there's a lot of parity right now in women's tennis. Of course, 6 of the top 10 players in the world also not participating in this U.S. Open, so we knew it was going to be a wide open draw, and certainly that has been what we've seen unfold through week 1. Here to recap all of the action with me, as he has throughout the week on both our Great Shot podcast and Mini Break podcast. You, of course, know him as our Cracked Racquets Do Everything former Denison men's tennis great, the only undefeated high school coach in Missouri history, and of course, a man I affectionately refer to as James Foster McDonald. Jamie, what are your thoughts on week 1 of this Women's U.S. Open?
Really exciting, right? I mean, you set the scene pretty well, but really didn't know what we were getting into, and week 1 absolutely lived up to the hype. So really excited to see where we go from here moving into week 2.
And of course, much like we did on the men's video, we are going to stick with a similar format here on the women's. We're going to whittle it down to our 6 biggest questions. We're going to talk about our most impressive performers, our most disappointing performers, of course, the dark horses we think could emerge here in week 2. We're going to talk about the storylines we think they're going to come out of this U.S. Open as well. We're going to name our favorite matches of week 1, and then, of course, we are going to be giving you all our predictions for how we expect week 2 to unfold. But Jamie, with that in mind, let's start with question number 1, and we are a glass half full type of company here at Cracked Racquets, so let's start on the positive side. Who are your most impressive performers through week 1 of this U.S. Open?
Yeah, I mean, this one was tough. There are a lot of people who you could put in this category, and so hopefully I left some for you as well, because you look anywhere in this draw and you can name names. But a couple that I circled, first of all, right off the bat, Azarenka. I think there were some questions about, hey, would she be able to back up the impressive display that she put on at Western and Southern? And the answer is absolutely, because she has looked so good. So I think you have to give credit to Vika Azarenka. The other one, American Sofia Kenin. There are a lot of reasons here. You know, we can talk about her tennis specifically, but for me, it's about the fact that she has come through a really difficult section of the draw, and she's answered every challenge that's been thrown her way. So really impressive. Really excited to see her doing well.
Completely agree with you, Jamie, and you mentioned some names on the bottom portion of the draw. On the top half, players who stick out to me: Annette Kontaveit, she beat Danielle Collins, she beat Magda Linette, fairly comfortable. She looks really good. I also think Jennifer Brady, you look at her last 3 matches, and we're recording this after her win over Angelique Kerber, but before that, she beat players like Caroline Garcia, Cece Bells very comfortably in straight sets. She's looked outstanding. You know, Shelby Rogers, of course, we knew she had some momentum, some really good form on her side coming into this one. She finds herself in the 4th round. That's a great performance. Those are some of the names still alive that jump out to me, but there are some other players, people like Katie McNally, Jessica Pegula, Ann Lee. Yes, they're all American, but they all did really well to make the 3rd round, and they may have lost their matches, but they really impressed me. So I agree with you, Jamie, a bunch of impressive performers through the first week. Let's look on the flip side of this, though. Who are the players who you expected to maybe still be alive, or who got knocked out early that you're a little disappointed in?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to talk about the ones who excited us, but unfortunately there were a couple who I expected some more out of. And for me, the 2 names I would circle right off the bat, the number 1 seed going out early, Karolina Pliskova, right? Because, you know, we know what she can do on a hard court, and obviously consistency is something that we're always questioning. And in this one, you know, just really unfortunate to see her go out so early, because she had a real opportunity in the top half of this draw. The other one for me, somebody that I was feeling really good about coming out of the Western and Southern Open, was Jo Konta. I thought she looked really good at Western and Southern, then just sort of flamed out here. The 9 seed had some opportunities to move through the draw and really just sort of folded. So unfortunate to see from both of those players.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a name like Garbine Muguruza kind of stands out, but you look at her opponent, Perankova, who was someone we should have mentioned in our most impressive performers, knocks off Muguruza, knocks off Donna Vekic to get to the 4th round. I mean, for Muguruza, I think it was an injury thing, so I'm not going to put her in this category, but for Donna Vekic, if you watch that match, I mean, just nothing was working for her in that one. That was very disappointing, especially after a great win for her in the 1st round over Karolina Pliskova. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Karolina Pliskova probably has to be on this list. Garcia's good, but you're the number one seed. You got to get to the third round. I think two other names, that stand out to me. Diana Yastremska, who, went 7-6 in the third, I think, in her first match, and then lost a match to Madison Brengo, who's a great competitor, but doesn't have a weapon really to hurt Yastremska with, and yet, Yastremska just did not compete that well in that match. She's in my category for sure. And then Aryna Sabalenka, not that it was a bad loss to Vika Azarenka, I just really thought Sabalenka was ready to make the jump. She's not quite there yet, and again, tough draw for her second round against Azarenka, but those are two players I would throw in that category as well.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. It's interesting you mentioned Sabalenka. If this draw breaks differently, maybe we're not having this conversation. But yeah, credit to Azarenka there. Unfortunate for Sabalenka though, because maybe again if it's a different draw, she's probably still around in week 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, again, just a flyer. I really thought Jill Teichmann was going to be the person in the fourth round, not Alizé Cornet. I was wrong about that. She lost first round. That was a little bit disappointing given her form in Lexington. But, Jamie, you start to look at this draw now as we turn towards this second week, and there are a lot of fascinating round of 16 matchups, a lot of really fun players still alive. Who are some of your dark horse picks who you think could make, a semifinal, final, maybe even a run at the title here?
Yeah, and I think one that we've already talked about is Jennifer Brady at this point. I think I had the winner of the Kerber-Brady matchup circled regardless for this dark horse question. So the fact that Brady came out of this so convincingly just gives me more confidence there. And if you want to consider Azarenka a dark horse, given her past, I don't know if you would, but if we categorize her as such, I think she's absolutely a contender for this title, given the level we've seen from her now.
Yeah, it's a tough qualification. Is a former Grand Slam champion ever a dark horse? Tough to say. I don't know if Anett Kontaveit is a dark horse, but I'll tell you this. If she beats Naomi Osaka, that top half of the draw looks very, very intriguing for her. I think Elise Mertens, if she can knock off Sofia Kenin, same deal. She's been playing so well of late. I don't know if they both qualify as dark horses, but they're outside the top 10 in terms of seeds, and they're still alive here in week number 2. So I'm going to throw them in that category. And then, Jen Brady on the top half, she already knocks out Angelique Kerber. She's in the quarterfinals now. She's playing confidently. She's played a lot of tennis, but that match toughness is what separates her from a lot of other players right now. So she is someone I would certainly throw in that list of dark horses. And maybe you think, Jamie, that one of those players is going to emerge as champion, and that's going to be the storyline we're talking about after this U.S. Open. But once all of the matches are done, Jamie, what's the conversation in the tennis world going to look like?
Yeah, look, I think there are a lot of different things you can point to, especially when you have a major after such a break. There's going to be so many different things people are focusing on. For me, though, and I know I've talked about her a lot already on this, but we got to continue the conversation on Azarenka, because really we have not seen her back to her top form in a really long time. And so this is the best tennis we've seen from Vika Azarenka in years. So at this point, you got to ask the question, is Vika Azarenka back, right? Is this a one-time thing where she does really well at Western and Southern and shows up at the U.S. Open, or do we expect her to see, do we expect to see her deep in majors from here on out? I think that's a really interesting one.
Yeah, that's a really good storyline. Absolutely. If she can go Western, Southern, U.S. Open back-to-back, that would be ridiculous. It's something you expect out of Novak Djokovic still, not something we thought we'd be saying about Victoria Azarenka. I think there are 3 other potential storylines we're going to be talking about, Jamie. I think number 1, I'll start with the player I still consider my favorite to win this event. If Naomi Osaka goes finals of Western, Southern, she pulls out with injury, but then comes back to win this U.S. Open. It was a rough 2019 for her, but she's back at the top of the conversation of who's the next great player in the women's game. Who's the next, when I say great player, she's already a great player. Who's the next 10-time slam champion? She probably becomes the leader in that conversation. The other player who's got a shot at that claim, Sofia Kenin, who, if she comes through this draw to go Fernandez, Jabeur, Mertens, potentially Azarenka, then maybe Serena, then maybe Osaka, that's her 7 wins. If she wins this U.S. Open, the conversation becomes, holy crap, Sofia Kenin's the best player in the world right now on hard courts, and it's not particularly close, because that would be amazing to me. And then the last one, if she wins this event, and I finally think she is capable of it after her third round win, if Serena Williams wins 24, we're not just going to be talking about it. It won't just be, us in the tennis world. It'll be the greater sporting world. It'll lead Sports Center. I'm sure Good Morning America will have her on the show. She'll make the rounds. That's obviously a storyline, to anticipate over the next week.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, all of those great stories as well. Yes, if Serena comes up with 24, make no mistake, that's going to be the biggest one.
Yeah, and so that's something for us to look forward to. Well, then with that in mind, Jamie, do you think she's going to get 24? What are your picks for your finalists and ultimately winner of this 2020 U.S. Open in women's singles?
Well, I got to stick to my word, right? You remember on the WTA preview we did just a week ago, I did say I thought Serena, I had a gut feeling that she was going to do it. If she could get through week one, then week two, who knows, she can beat anybody with the experience and greatness that she has. So I still put Serena as my favorite. I think there's an interesting chance here. You and I talked about it before hopping on. There's a good chance an American woman wins this tournament, right? Think about who's still left in the draw. Kenin, a major contender. Jen Brady, who's looked so good. Shelby Rogers still in the draw. There's just Americans everywhere you look in this round of 16, now moving into the quarters. So definitely an opportunity there. I think that Osaka will probably make the finals. I think that is... just given what we've seen from her, unless that leg injury really restricts her, I think you're silly to not put Osaka in that category, but give me Serena for the win.
That's, by the way, another storyline, the depth for the American women right now. It's not just Serena, Sloane, Keys, who have been at the top of the game for a while. It's not just Kenin, Anisimova, Goff. It's, the Pagulas, the Peras, the Shelby Rogers of the world. There are just so many outstanding players right now. The depth in women's tennis, of course, Katie McNally, Ann Lee, Cece Bellis, Whitney Osigwe, Haley Baptiste. You can go on and on and on about the promising young talents, but there's just so much depth in the women's game, and that makes it such a fun time to be a fan of American women's tennis. I've flip-flopped back and forth on this so many times, even in preparation for this. I think I'm going to stick with Osaka as my champion. I just think she's still continued, as good as Vika's been, as good as, honestly, Petra Kvitova has been at times, as good as Kontaveit's been. When the Osaka serve is clicking, when she's playing her best, it's better than anyone else in the draw. And you're right, the injury is concerning, but I'm going to stick with Osaka, and I think she's going to play Sofia Kenin. I've been so impressed by Sofia Kenin's level of improvement from match to match. She just can do so many things well on the court. She's one of those rare players where, okay, plan A is not working. Okay, plan B is not working. Don't worry, I can go to C, to D, to E if I need to. And to me, that's so impressive. And so I'm going to stick with her to win. But I think it's going to be a toss-up. I think it's going to be a really fun next week. And I skipped the question because I was so excited to hear your predictions. I am curious for those who are maybe, because now in week 2, there's a lull, right? There's not as many matches on a day-by-day basis. If they're to go back and rewatch one match from week 1, what's your favorite match, Jamie?
Yeah, I think this plays into what we've seen on the American women tennis side, right? And for me, it's Katie McNally. Her win over Alexandrova was really, really impressive for a lot of reasons. You can get into the tennis, but ultimately for me, the fact that somebody so young has the maturity to bounce back from being a set down, win that tight third set breaker, very, very impressive from Katie McNally, and only gives me promise for the future of her game.
Yeah, no, I have 3 other matches I would throw at you from the American perspective. Honestly, I have 4 I could do. Kontaveit Collins first round, that was great. Buskova, Pegula, that was one I thought was a curse from the gods. It ended up being everything you could have wanted. A third set breaker. Katrina Scott has looked great. Another promising young American versus Amanda Anisimova. And then, Bernarda Pera versus Maria Sakkari. That was a lot of fun. But the quality of tennis has been exceptional from start to finish. And of course, it's only going to get better from here. If you have missed any of the action, be sure to go check out our daily recaps, Jamie and I going through on our mini break podcast, of course. Great Shot podcast for our picks on our Ace of the Day segment. And of course, all of that you can find on video as well on our YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to that. Jamie, any final thoughts on this women's draw before we wrap?
Just really looking forward to seeing the American women, move through this and maybe even close out a draw. That'd be fun to see.
Yeah, it's going to certainly, again, be a very exciting week 2 at the U.S. Open. We hope you all enjoy all of that action. We hope you enjoyed this video, that you'll stick around with us on the podcast all week long. But as always, thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy the second week of the U.S. Open.